Good day to everyone. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee of De La Salle University's Research Congress for the opportunity to present this research paper, and of course, for arranging this online event. This research paper is a product of both of my experience and interests. I have witnessed how the events in this paper unfolded in recent Philippine history, the removal of Philippine history in high school, the rise of demagogues at the advent of the age of disinformation, and the rampant spread of false facts online. I would like to imply that these events might be accidental, yet crucial in understanding recent Philippine history. I thought of writing this paper for three particular reasons. First, to address the removal of Philippine history in the junior high school curriculum is disadvantageous. Second, the lack of understanding of our nation's history is detrimental. Third, how do we go from here? In 2015, then President Benigno Aquino III shared to the audience his disbelief that young Filipinos were asking why Apolinario Mabini was seated throughout the film General Luna. While many found it comic or of a little interest, Aquino expressed his concern. Quote, even if only a few students said this, it is a reflection of deficiency in the historical knowledge of some young people at present. Unquote. The effort to evaluate the curriculum, however, was short-lived when Aquino's presidency ended in 2016. In the same year, a mayor from Davao City by the name of Rodrigo Duterte was running for presidency and campaigned through the help of massive social media propaganda. I use the term propaganda because it meant to influence its audience rather than just inform. Apart from Duterte's positive campaign about his mayorship in Davao, was a series of vicious attacks against critics, independent news agencies, media practitioners, and journalists in particular. In his camp, the Change is Coming movement took advantage of Filipinos' fondness for social media. Facebook, Twitter, including YouTube, became havens of internet trolls, fake news peddlers, and in disinformation movements. Many Filipinos, in this case, not limited to students, but including adults, became victims of political misinformation, disinformation, and network propaganda. But as a student of history, I was more interested in historical negationism. But what is it? It is a distortion or falsification of historical facts to manipulate public opinion. The term should not be confused with historical revisionism. In the study of history, the discovery of new data requires new historical interpretations of the past. Historical negationism, for that reason, is disinformation. To provide more evidence that the age of disinformation started in Duterte's presidency, I explored the works of Jonathan Ong and Jason Cabañas. Another study was done in Oxford by Samantha Bradshaw and Philip Howard. In this paper, however, I limit my discussion on the government's removing of Philippine history in high school through the new K-12 curriculum. Second, this information zeroing on issues related to historical negationism in the Philippines that were prominently significant. Third, discuss some of the vigorous attempts made to combat the issues on the removal of Philippine history in high school and on historical negationism. In this paper, I leverage on the framework about the importance of education and information literacy in the age of disinformation. This framework is also supported by the model of unanticipated consequences by sociologist Robert Merton. Take, for example, the removal of Philippine history in the new high school curriculum. This provocative move was taken advantage of by malevolent actors, but also unintentionally resulted in founding efforts by academic and non-academic actors. In general, the rise of demagogues or populist leaders like Trump, Bolsonaro, and Duterte, who capitalized on such internet content, also led to the questioning of social media models. I would like first to discuss the decline and fall of Philippine history. One of the reforms of the K-12 curriculum was the removal of Philippine history as a general social studies subject in the grade 7 curriculum. The said Philippine history subject was adjusted to grade 5 level, creating a 5 to 7 year gap between grade school to college. The new curriculum in high school prioritized a regional and global perspective on studying social studies, more emphasis on Asian studies, world history, and contemporary world issues. Rather than strengthening an inward view of history or national history, the K-12 promotes an outward appreciation of history or global history. I'm not giving the impression that K-12 is harmful to young Filipinos today, but the way it was put together needs a second look. Likewise, in this age of the internet, where unchecked information flows freely in every young Filipino's fingertips, a strong and solid foundation on history seems necessary. The problem, however, is not endemic in the Philippine setting. In the United States, for example, university students majoring in history are declining significantly. History, as a discipline, is beginning to be less essential and could further, in effect, result in the denigration of critical thinking at what recent data shows. In just a short time in the United States, this resulted in the rise of conspiracy theories, victims of disinformation and rampant misinformation at the height of Donald Trump's presidency from 2016 to 2020. And similar conditions are obviously happening in the Philippine internet space, in various social media platforms. The Mabini issue in 2015 is just the tip of the iceberg, concerning a set of problems related to the depreciation of Philippine historical consciousness. The status of Philippine history as a highly reputable humanistic discipline further declined at the dawn of the Age of Disinformation, beginning in 2016. This is an age of Philippine contemporary period where facts were manufactured or twisted to serve a political purpose. In this preliminary study, however, I primarily focus on details concerning the return of the Marcoses in national politics. In 2016, we have Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., who ran for higher office, who nearly snatched the vice presidency from Leni Robredo. Maria Imelda Aimee Marcos, who campaigned and won a seat in 2019. And President Duterte played a part in this affair. In fact, during Duterte's presidential campaign, he employed the frustrations of the educated middle class, a support base who happened to be the most active on social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter. He focused on campaign platforms like eradicating criminality, solving the EDSA traffic, and the issue in the West Philippine Sea, and many more, that heavily capitalized on the resentment of the middle class. Ironically, the same social media platforms were hotbeds of distortionist and negationist accounts about Marcos authoritarianism. And Duterte willingly enabled and endorsed the rehabilitation of the Marcos public image. According to Ong and Cabañas, this positive rebranding campaign was carried out by a network of digital black ops that were primarily goal was to produce negationist accounts ranging from scripted content, edited photos, memes, videos, in an effort to change the image of the former dictator and his family. Confirmed by Brittany Kaiser, a former Cambridge Analytica employee, who revealed that the Marcoses requested their now defunct political consulting agency to rebrand the Marcos family's image on social media. Through Rappler's thorough fact-checking investigation and online data analysis, they have uncovered a web of network propagandas from various websites, Facebook groups and pages, YouTube channels, social media personalities, or influencers, altering, quote, public perception of the Marcoses by either downplaying or outrightly denying kleptocracy and human rights violation during the martial years, exaggerating Marcos' achievements and vilifying critics, rivals, and mainstream media, unquote. Majority of these disinformation propagators are either pro-Marcos and pro-Duterte social media personalities. For example, a self-proclaimed historian named Sangkay Janjan, having over 500,000 followers in online video sharing site YouTube, has continuously produced daily to weekly videos distorting historical facts and narratives to exaggerate the Marcos achievements. This alarmed scholars, particularly Filipino historians, and an appeal for a thorough scholarship to fight disinformation. On social media, historian Filomeno Aguilar, the Ateneo de Manila University, deliberately said to fellow historians and history teachers, quote, given academia's general failure to produce scholarly works on the Marcos regimes, the narratives, accounts, and interpretations of the Marcos period that dominate are those that circulate in the public domain primarily through social media. In such terrain, we should not be surprised that the past is politicized rather, in pursuit of specific political agenda, unquote. Subsequently, in 2020, an online seminar was organized by the Consortium of Democracy and Disinformation, De La Salle University's Jesse M. Robredo's Institute of Governance, and the Asian Center for Journalism of the Ateneo de Manila University. Researcher Miguel Paulo Reyes of the Marcos Regime Research Group revealed that falsified information and online propaganda related to the Marcoses' positive rebranding continue to plague digital media. Now, how can we academics and scholars respond to these issues? Over the past 5 years, from 2016 to 2021, efforts by academics and non-academics actors were also evident. The first to take the stand for the return of Philippine history in high school was Jamaico Ignacio, a social studies teacher at the Ateneo de Manila Junior High School who co-founded the History High School Philippine History Movement, formerly Ibalik ang Philippine History sa High School Movement. The primary concern of Ignacio and his movement is simply the return of Philippine history and social studies lineup in the high school curriculum. Influenced by principles of developmental psychology championed by Erik Erikson, Ignacio argues that the teenager years in high school are the most formative. Quote, this is an age bracket where they are socially, developmentally, and politically malleable, unquote. In that sense, the movement asked the DepEd to review the K-12 curriculum. Their petition also hopes to have Philippine history integrated with contemporary world issues in grade 10 and an additional Philippine history focused subject in the senior high school, in the hope for a better appreciation of Philippine history and to boost a sense of nationalism to students, as it will synergize with all tranches of education system. Ignatius' movement was duly supported by eminent member historians of the Philippine Historical Association, one of the oldest professional organizations of historians in the country. They called out for the return of Philippine history in the high school curriculum, citing pedagogical concern and inculcation of historical consciousness. Some of the unanticipated effects of considerable disinformation online are the public's growing interest and curiosity. In a report by Ian Harvey Claros of news agency Quiz.ph, of the 26 publishers who joined the Aklatan All-Filipino Online Book Fair last August and September, Ateneo de Manila University Press topped the list. In terms of battling disinformation and misinformation online, independent social media explainers like the Media Commoner are setting the standards concerning online socio-political discourse. Media Commoner has tackled a wide array of topics from noteworthy historical events in Philippine history to nascent contemporary issues. Founder J.P. Campos explained that the fact-based journalism was not enough in presenting genuine content nowadays, but interpretation and thought-provoking visuals also played a huge part in improving online dialectics. To counter the potential threat of misinformation, Campos added that, quote, our enemy isn't just the idea of misinformation, but people who peddle misinformation, unquote. Recently, an effort by University of the Philippines History Program graduates started a podcast called Podcast, Conversation, Philippine History, Politics, and Society. The podcast is composed of different segments, ranging from analyzing primary sources to discussing controversies in Philippine history, but anchored on historiography. Apart from spreading awareness on the importance and relevance of Philippine history, podcast also aims to promote critical thinking and evidence-based to understanding social issues in different contexts. On a final note, the results presented in this paper are only partial, yes, yet substantial. To have a better picture of the effects of removing Philippine history in the high school curriculum in relation to the rampant misinformation will take more than a few years from now, from better collection of data to new frameworks of study. The overview of this research, however, presents a starting point on such features research from a similar standpoint. This research has presented that a decline in historical thinking and decayed appreciation of Philippine history is extremely dangerous. In an era of fast technology and unregulated online discourse, young Filipinos could be potential victims of disinformation, misinformation, and propaganda. And such ignorance of historical knowledge might lead to the domination of false facts and the denigration of critical thinking. A return of Philippine history in the high school curriculum can mend what has been broken, and the exertive efforts done by the academic and non-academic actors can further improve the fight against disinformation. This research does not only knock on the doors of policymakers to reassess the educational curriculum of the Philippines, but to give us hypnosis of what is happening in this age of disinformation. The effects of those academic and non-academic are limited. The state, which upholds in the Constitution the right to education, must maintain rectitude and rightfully support the future of the nation's well-being. Philippine history is under siege by uncontrollable political forces. But looking back, the only way to act against this rampant disinformation and propaganda is a unified effort from both the state and the academia. Thank you.